Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Welcome to Policy and Rights, the show about human rights and government policy. Welcome back, everyone. And today we're going to have two discussions. A discussion with a concerned citizen about Surrey Police versus RCMP in Surrey B.C. There is a growing concern over should Surrey switch to their own police department, or should they be keeping the RCMP that is currently in Surrey right now? There's a number of concerns around this, and people are looking for transparency, and they're looking for is there a way to voice their opinion, because we are a democratic society and we should be allowed to voice our opinion to public officials and elected officials about what we think should happen in our communities. Along with that, of course, we're seeing reopening of businesses and things like that. So we have a branding expert come on with us. As the Uragi of Go Tell You Go, Marketing and Branding is going to join us in a discussion around some of the better ways to actually communicate with our customers as a business owner, and getting out in front of people so that they know that our customers can come back with confidence and know that we're open, ready for business in a safe environment, so that everybody can enjoy our products and services once again. So let's get on with it. And first up, we're going to listen to concerned citizen Paul talk about the benefits of RCMP in Surrey BC. Welcome back, everybody. We're here today with Paul. Paul is a concerned citizen of Surrey BC, and for those of us who actually live in Surrey BC, as you may know, listeners may know, that Depictions Media is not only based in Surrey BC, but I also reside in South Surrey, and the situation is this, and this is one of Paul's big concerns, is switching from the national policing system, or the RCMP, to a city-based police system would be the Surrey PD. And so, Paul, why don't we get into this, and what are some of your big concerns about actually switching to from the RCMP?
Okay. Well, speaking for myself and the organisation I represent, which is the Keep the RCMP in Surrey campaign, quite obviously our principal concern is keeping the RCMP in Surrey. In terms of actual benefits and service to the people of Surrey of retaining the RCMP, there are many reasons why it is a good idea to keep the RCMP in our community, and a very bad reason to introduce an unknown force, which is essentially reportable and accountable only to one individual in Surrey, and that is Mayor McCallum. First of all, in the briefest possible terms, the situation is that if Mayor McCallum's pet police project goes forward, we will have in Surrey a police force that has less police members. We will get less police public safety coverage, and we will be paying more tax dollars. So that is put in its most simplest term, the biggest issue. The belief of the vast majority of people who support our organisation, and I just mentioned that some 45,000 citizens, residents of Surrey, signed our petition to keep the RCMP in Surrey. Our big concern is that, and belief is that the RCMP have served Surrey loyally and honourably for the last 70 years, since 1951. This year is the 70th anniversary of the RCMP in Surrey. We believe that they are the finest police force in the world, and we would like to keep them in our community.
Well, okay, so you said you counted how many people signed your petition again?
45,000. And this petition was presented to the provincial government at the cabinet offices in downtown Vancouver approximately 2 months ago. And since that time, we have not, and we were assured going to be and was transmitted to Victoria for the personal attention of Premier Horgan and his government, and we never even had the courtesy of an acknowledgement that it had been received. And furthermore, that is symptomatic of the treatment that we've had from all of the sitting NDP MLAs in Surrey, all 6 of them. They have never once in the year or so that we have been aggressively, visibly, politely, civilly campaigning, never once had the courtesy to return a phone call, an email, a letter, whether it was delivered hard copy, recorded post. We've never had the courtesy of a response from any sitting MLA of the NDP caucus in Surrey. So we're feeling very ignored and very aggrieved. And I would particularly also like to reference the fact that Premier Farnworth, Solicitor General Farnworth, Minister responsible for public safety, has received innumerable emails, letters, communications, including one handed to him personally by our organisation leader, Ivan Scott, coordinator of our campaign. Never once have we had an acknowledgement. We have had acknowledgements to our letters, direct letters to him from his bureaucrats. Invariably, they never answer the questions or address the concerns that we express. We just get bureaucratic doublespeak, gobbledygook, and bafflegab. And to put it mildly, we're more than somewhat incensed by this. Their behaviour, and bad as it is exceeded in its rudeness and discourtesy by Mayor McCallum, who, if anything, is worse. This individual not only also doesn't respond to telephone calls, emails, letters, or any other form of normal communication. He's actively and vindictively gone out of his way to do everything he can to impede, obstruct, and stifle our voice as a campaign trying to keep the RCMP in Surrey. Just as an example, on Canada's national birthday, he banned us from exercising our democratic right by collecting signatures in a public park. That was on Canada Day. He's repeatedly denied our request to appear before him and council as a delegation, and on and on and on.
Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong here. We do live in a democracy, and if you at the number of signatures that you've already collected, you would seem to represent a large number of voting individuals in Surrey B.C.
Yes, the people who signed our petition represent the diversity cross-section of community and society that we live in. Mm-hmm. Every gender balanced, age, spread the same. I would like to make particular reference to the fact that ethnic groups. It doesn't matter what ethnic or group or religious affiliation you have. The overwhelming majority, support our petition. So we can tell, for example, from the names on our 45,000 signature petition that at least 10,000 of them are from the South Asian community. And I mention that particularly because one of the most disgusting gutter politics I've ever seen in my 30 years in British Columbia, instigated by Mayor McCallum, and paid a lot of attention to by John Horgan and Mike Farnworth's provincial government, was they seemed to pay more attention to a 6-person petition from 6 temple leaders than they did to a petition from 45,000 Surrey citizens concerned. And our position on that was we were under the clear impression that we live in a democracy and not a theocracy. Religion, ethnic background has absolutely nothing to do with provision of public safety services that apply to all of us equally as citizens of Canada, not of one ethnic or religious group or another.
Mm-hmm. Well, and our elected officials should listen to us and also act in accordance to what the general opinion of the populace is, right? In other words, they should, if we citizens say that we want the Surrey PD, then we get Surrey PD. If we as citizens say, hey, we are very well happy with our RCMP, we like the benefits that they bring to us, either with having a national force for investigations and for law enforcement being able to tap into deeper resources, and actually have a larger number of officers protecting us, then that's what we should get, shouldn't we?
Well, I think I understand your question there, Michael.
In other words, if we want the RCMP, we should have the RCMP, not Surrey PD.
Exactly. I think what our position is very simple. We believe that such a significant and dramatic change in public safety for our community, that the people need to understand the full implications. They need to understand the costs. They need to understand what level of service they could expect. I mean, obviously, we support the RCMP being in our community for a variety of reasons. I mean, it's not just the normal community services response to violent crimes and so on. The RCMP here in Surrey have a much broader responsibility for border security, for example, they have laboratory forensic resources that a municipal police force simply doesn't have. We believe that they are much better equipped, professionally trained to deal with the situation in Surrey, which is, as you know, British Columbia's most rapidly growing community. And, I hope I've answered your question there.
Yeah.
Our position is that we want to be consulted, and we believe that the final decision on whether to proceed with Mayor McCallum's Pet Police project or keep the RCMP should be a decision made by the people of Surrey, either through the form of a referendum or at the next municipal election, or by the immediate introduction in the next sitting of the legislature of recall legislation, which for municipal politicians, which would enable us, we believe, to recall Mayor McCallum and his coalition in a heartbeat, and we would. No question about that. This is a one-man obsession to impose a police force that is not wanted, not needed in our city, that would cost the taxpayer more and ultimately end up with less police officers. Now, I would also like to add as well this police transition, we don't really know the full cost of what the transition would be, because the Opal report had 25% of its report redacted, unknown to the public. We don't know what it's going to be, and we feel that we should. The information is not being made available to the public. It's hidden, it's deceptive, and certainly not transparent, and it hasn't been inclusive of the community groups in our city. And I would particularly like to mention there has been absolutely no consultation by either the provincial government or Mayor McCallum's city government with First Nations, something which the provincial government expressly signed on to with the UN Declaration of Indigenous Human Rights. First Nations haven't been consulted, and they're not the only group in our community who have not been included and not consulted.
Well, it seemed like as soon as McCallum got elected, this was like almost number one thing on his agenda was to start working on this, and it seemed that it didn't matter what anybody else thought. He was just going to go forward with this because this is his pet project, and not that it's wanted by any of the other citizens of Surrey at all.
Well, you're right. I mean, from day one, this has been a personal vendetta, in my opinion. This is just my personal opinion. A vendetta by Mayor McCallum against the RCMP for reasons which he could probably answer better, but there are all sorts of speculations for what that might be, and so on. But from day one, he and his coalition have been thoroughly dishonest with the people of Surrey. Two of his councillors ran for election without disclosing the fact that they didn't even live in Surrey. One lived in White Rock and the other one lived in Delta. And, we go on and on. His living girlfriend, Councillor Patton, actually purported to be a medical doctor, and that was on all of her election literature, when she was no such thing. She's a naturopathic doctor. She was disciplined and fined by a professional association for misrepresenting herself, and that still didn't stop her, because she still has in recent weeks been purporting with her name badge, photographs in the media, to be a doctor when she's no such thing.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I since I've lived in Surrey for the past 15 years, Surrey, for the most part, yes, there have been a handful of gangland things happen, but for the most part, this is a very safe place to live, and that has to be attributed to the RCMP.
Yes, indeed, yeah. So, you're right.
Yeah. So, if we look at the Vancouver police, is like when they from statistically when I get that they haven't done any better of a job than the RCMP. It seemed the RCMP has done a better job here in Surrey than they have done in Vancouver with the Vancouver PD.
I totally agree with you. Absolutely, they've done the RCMP have done a way better job in Surrey, mm-hmm. And I think that their efforts to involve themselves in the community are very commendable. One of McCallum's assertions is that RCMP officers don't live in the community, or they don't come from the community, or they're going to be rotated out back to Ottawa or back east or whatever, which is absolute and total nonsense. These guys live here, they work here, they act as coaches for our children and our grandchildren for baseball, football, soccer, you name it. They live and work, and the most extraordinary aspect of McCallum's new police force proposal is that the whole thing would be conditional, he says, on RCMP officers transferring, the RCMP officers transferring over to the new municipal police force, which in my opinion is highly unlikely. And Mr. McCallum, to put it mildly, has been economic with the truth. In fact, no, I'll take it further. He's out and out lied, claiming that 60% of the RCMP officers in Surrey have communicated to him that they would like to work for his new police force. A blatant, absolute, calculated, unmitigated lie.
Okay, so what would be the absolute? I'm thinking about this as an employee. That why would I leave especially if I'm a seasoned officer? I have the potential for a full pension. Can Surrey produce that? When that there's all kinds of other benefits that the seasoned officers would already be privy to as being seasoned through the RCMP, having years of experience and time in service with the RCMP. They're going to leave all that for something lesser?
Well, my understanding, I'm not an expert on municipal or police pensions, but my understanding is that the RCMP's new union, I think they're called the National Federation of Police Officers, they would negotiate, if any, changes to pensions and all the rest of it. My understanding also is that's a very complex issue that's going to require lengthy and prolonged negotiation. Again, our understanding is a campaign to keep the RCMP in Surrey, and many of our volunteers have family who are members of the RCMP, and so on. Our understanding, clear understanding, is few, if any, current Surrey RCMP officers are in the slightest bit interested in transferring to Mayor McCallum's new police force. Just not going to happen.
It wouldn't. It just doesn't seem like that would be. It just doesn't make sense to leave the RCMP to join the Surrey PD.
Well, absolutely right, and I mean even more so in the current COVID-19 situation, which I think has been going. It seems to have gone on forever, but I think it's been going on now for about 2.5, nearly 3 months. You have to remember, Mayor McCallum has taken $250 million plus off the municipal budget to allocate it to his pet police transition. This money was earmarked and promised for municipal infrastructure. It was supposed to be going to programs that help the poor, the dispossessed, the needy in our community. All of this is now going to a police transition. At the same time, he laid off 2,000 plus city workers. He has hired 10 very high-paid senior managers to oversee this police transmission, and one of whom was recently recruited from Delta Police to head up the communications for the supposed new police board. I mean, if any, could there be anything that shows less concern and consideration for the city workers? We, in our campaign, have to correct ourselves quite frequently. We talk about the city of Surrey doing this, city of Surrey doing that. I want to be clear on this. We're referring to Mayor McCallum and his gang of incompetence. We are not referring to the hard-working men and women who do so much in our community, from working in the rec centres to collecting our garbage to tending our parks and all the other essential services. This is a very small group of seemingly unaccountable individuals on council. They have a majority of one on council at the moment, and they're inflicting this misery on our community. And on talking of misery, Michael, if I could just mention for a moment, often overlooked in this discussion are the RCMP members and their families themselves. Imagine being, the wife or a husband of an RCMP member, and you're thinking about paying your mortgage and putting your children through school and having a family life and all the rest of it. Now this uncertainty has been introduced in July. Not a pleasant situation.
No.
And it's one that Mayor McCallum, I believe, has very, very badly handled and mishandled. and it's got to stop. And our campaign tactic is very simple. The petition didn't work. It got us a lot of publicity, and people paid attention. We had very positive coverage in the media, who, generally speaking, I think have been very fair, but supportive of our position overall, I think. Our position is really simple. We are going to hold the politicians accountable. We have already publicly stated, if we can push this out to the next municipal election before a decision is made, we will vote Mayor McCallum and his crew out immediately. And we intend to hold the government NDP caucus members to account as well. And if they do not change tack very quickly and give us a referendum or halt this process, come the next provincial election, and we're only a year away, we'll vote them out as well. And we'll consider everything in our list of options to do so. It's a little bit late for us to initiate recall against an MLA that's less than a year, but so we've missed out on that one. And I would also, like to mention the BC Liberal opposition. They have been equally derelict with their MLAs in representing and expressing the concerns of the citizens of Surrey to the government of the day, which, as official opposition, is their duty bound to do. We have written many, many times to Andrew Wilkinson, the leader of the opposition. Never got a response from him. Not one MLA in Surrey, other than Marvin Hunt, has ever publicly come out and voiced concerns about this transition. Only one elected official, Ken Hardy, MP, has come out and called for a referendum. The rest have just sat on their butts and done nothing.
So, just to wrap things up here, because we are going to start to run out of time soon.
I'm sorry, Michael, I can't hear you.
I say we're going to run out of time soon, so just to wrap things up,
yep.
You have lawn signs and things like that to get attention. How can people get a hold of that lawn sign to put it up if they're against they're for the RCMP?
Yes, we keep the RCMP in Surrey lawn sign. We're now approaching 2,000 that we've delivered. The best way for your listeners to get hold of them is actually, as you did, to look at the bottom of the lawn sign. You'll see the name Ivan Scott and a telephone number. Just ring the number, order a lawn sign. We'll get a volunteer out to deliver it to you within a few days, subject to availability. They're going very, very, very quickly. Okay. And, we're very pleased. We're very pleased with the response we're getting from the community on that. We order these signs at $1,000 a pop. We order 1,000 at a go. They cost $5,000 for 1,000 lawn signs. We get donations. People give us donations. We actually are collecting more money than the cost of the signs. We have set ourselves an objective of 12,000 signs in our community by the end of August. That's going to cost us $60,000. We're very confident that will all come from donations from ordinary citizens, the length, breadth, north, east, south, and west of the city of Surrey. And that should be a message to every politician. Get on side. The community does not want this transition. We want to keep the RCMP in Surrey.
And I agree with you 100% that the average person here in Surrey does want to keep the RCMP, and the RCMP has done a wonderful job thus far. Why disband them now?
Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate your support, and happy to talk to you anytime.
Okay, so thanks for joining us today, Paul, and I'll make sure that you actually get a copy of this so that you can put it out through your channels also because I think it's important that people know the truth about what is going on, and It doesn't seem like there's going to be a vote towards it for us citizens, and there should at least be that we get to vote on it.
Yeah. Michael, if I could just close very quickly by saying I'd encourage your listeners to, and you as well, to visit our Facebook page, Keep the RCMP in Surrey, and secondly, to visit our Twitter account, Keep the RCMP in Surrey. And if you send a copy of this podcast to us, or to me, we'll post it on our Facebook page, and hopefully, we'll get more people listening to your program. And again, thank you for your support.
You're very welcome, and thank you for joining us today. All right.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Communication in our community on both political levels with our elected officials is very important, and we should be ensured to let those elected officials know that we do need to communicate with them and be adamant about making sure that happens. Of course, if you're a business owner, communication with your community around you, where your customers and your clients come from, is also going to be important. So now we have a conversation with Azadeh Uragi over how to do that effectively through branding and marketing. Welcome back, everyone. I'm here today with Azadeh, and Azadeh is a brand specialist, a #1 best-selling author on Amazon. We'll get the name of her book from her in a second. She is the founder of Go Tell You Go Creatives, which is a branding agency, and she has at least 15 years experience in branding strategy and just helping people get their brand and business going. So Azadeh has been on a speaking circuit across Canada, which is pretty cool, and partly how we got to reconnect and bring her on the show. So Azadeh is also a community leader at the David Suzuki Foundation and past communication lead at the Vancouver Board of Trade. Ooh. Welcome to the show, Azadeh.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael, and hello to everyone who's listening. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah. It seems... I remember we met like years and years ago in a workshop, and it seems like you've just grown leaps and bounds with what is you're doing with the community and branding. So,
wow, yes, I do remember when we first met. I think it was probably at the very beginning of when I started my journey towards entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
And it was a difficult one because if you remember, it was right around the recession, and not a lot of organizations had budgets for branding and marketing. Everybody was pulling back. And so, yeah, it was a time to create something different and innovate, think outside the box. And yeah. Well,
you've actually proven one of the economic theories. If a company goes out and brands themselves and they spend that extra money during a recession, they spend that extra money to actually brand themselves and market themselves, that they usually wind up coming out on top on the other end. So, so yeah. So very.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember where I saw that, but I did see that someplace. So anyway, along with that, I'm going to start off with. I remember that you had a mission when you started Go Tell You Go, that you had a mission, and we were talking about the missions that we wanted our businesses to have in. At one point in that workshop, I think it was just a conversation we had amongst ourselves. But anyway, why don't you tell everybody what that mission really is?
Yeah, I guess my mission really started, or I kind of tracked it back to a young age when I really understood that I exist to serve others. Really, that my life, I survived a war because I was actually born into a war zone in Iran. And when my parents got us to move to Canada, and, you know, we kind of went from a third world country to the most beautiful place on earth, Vancouver, it really hit me as a child that I just survived something pretty terrible. And I was just given this second chance to life to really make it count, you know? So I was 11 years old, and I took a vow with myself that I was going to do something important with my life, that I was going to give back to society, give back to community. And I was a creative person, so I really didn't know how I was going to do it. I knew I wasn't going to be a doctor, an engineer, and all that stuff. But I just thought, you know, with creativity, I will figure out one day how I can be of service. And so growing up, I always had that at the back of my head. And slowly, I found my way to help organizations and entrepreneurs problem solve through creative means. And for me, it was the avenue of branding, really hitting home through identity, looking at either individuals when they're personal branding or in teams and organizations when they're corporate branding. And what is the identity of these people, and how do they showcase it in an authentic way so that they get to connect with those that matter. And so, yeah, that's how I get to give back today. And like you said, like there's something that I'm working with, and I'm so passionate about it. I love it so much. I get to give back to people who are stuck, and that's what's given me the drive to keep going. Yeah.
You said the word identity a few times in that statement. So how important is brand identity to a business, no matter what size the business is, whether it's a solopreneur or up to a larger corporation?
Yeah, that's a really great question. And the word identity, I think, has different meanings for different people. A lot of times people think, you know, organizations or entrepreneurs, they have their business, and they think, well, you know, my identity is my corporate identity. So, you know, I have a logo, I have a website, I've got some business cards, print collateral, and that's my identity. Well, actually, it's not. Those are just translations of who you are. Your identity, or in other words, your brand, is so much deeper than that. It connects people on a subconscious level where it gets to inspire them, it gets to uplift them, and it stands for something that you stand for. And in order to figure out what that is, we go through a whole, you know, in-depth process of figuring out what that brand is.
Now, is some of this process things that you had to go through to build your own brand?
Absolutely, yeah. Because the process that I've actually built today for clients is nothing that I, let's say, learned from somewhere else. I really built it by what I saw missing. So I actually used to work for a pretty great ad agency, or let's say communication design agency in Paris, France. And our clients there were the top 40 clients, like companies in the world, 40 top companies in the world. And our mission, as art directors and creative directors, was to always be innovating and keep these innovative leaders in their marketplaces in that leadership place. And so that being an art director in that firm really opened my eyes as to what is missing in communication when brands are built. And so when I left that and came back to Vancouver and decided to start my business, I started looking at, so when there's that first initial conversation happening between designer and client, what are the sort of questions that are being asked to really hit home at the source of what's missing for them? And a lot of times it has nothing to do with design. It's so much more about, why do you even exist as an organization? What is it that you want to create in the world? what's not working? What are some challenges that you keep seeing year after year and they're not being addressed? Mm-hmm. And so when people say, oh, we want to go through a rebranding, we need to rebrand, our brand doesn't represent us. And they're just kind of thinking, oh, we just need a new logo, we need a new website, where actually there's something more fundamental that hasn't been addressed. And that's why each time they look at it, they're like, oh, it's still not representative of us. And so I went through that with my own brand, building it, because I kept asking, how do you see this? What do I do for you? Am I being clear in my messaging? And so, and really also, I learned kind of through clients, right? By trial and error, doing different things, seeing how one worked, then doing it a different way with the next client, and just kind of that growth over the last 11 years. Yeah. So
when you build a graphic for someone, and I know you have to go through a whole process where you have to discover what the vision of the organization is, a mission for that organization, mm-hmm. All those things. When you start building the graphic, how do you put all that back into the graphic?
That's an interesting question, and I don't know if I can really answer it. But yeah, like you said, we first go through values, mission, and vision. Mm-hmm. I call those 3 exercises really the fundamentals of building your brand, because if you don't know what your values are, you don't really know what you stand for, what's like really the backbone of who you are as an organization. And those values are there to guide you through these decisions. So, that usually brings out a lot of things, because people start talking about, compassion, trust, respect, excellence, impact. So all of these words usually has graphics associated to it. Mm-hmm. And so you start listening for what it is that's like, let's say their top 3 values, the top first value, versus, you usually don't want to have more than 7. So you usually have between 3 and 7 core values for your business. And so those values start to create some sort of a graphic as a creative person looking at this, then when you have your mission, let's say, your mission is to help businesses create a better future. So that right there, it's got some imagery to it based on that mission. Mm-hmm. Or your mission is to save the planet through hunger and saving plastic or something like that, right?
Right.
And so again, that has some sort of imagery to it. So they're not empty words. And so similarly with the vision, when you're creating your vision of the future and the kind of reputation that you want to create, those also have words to it. But it doesn't stop there, right? So if you're creating, let's say, brand and graphical assets for a company, you don't stop at values, mission, vision. You got to keep digging further, and the more you dig, so you actually have a conversation about colors. We take clients through the psychology of colors. All primary colors mm-hmm. have psychology to them, right? We connect to certain colors for a particular reason. And so if you're going to create your brand and you just think, well, I'm going to just, my brand's going to be purple because my favorite color is purple. Well, actually, you're in business, not for you, but for the people that you serve. So you got to really know what's important to them and what your brand is putting out there for them. So you always take it from their perspective, and you choose your colors based on their perspective, knowing what the psychology of these colors are.
Right.
Similarly for typography, similarly for the images that you choose, and then et cetera, et cetera. So when you have answers to some of these questions, when you hit your, canvas to create some of these things for your clients, then there's a language that's already there from that process. And so it makes it so that the creative comes around so much faster, clients approve things so much faster, and everybody's so much happier, and it's on point. You don't have to do this whole journey of, now do you like this and do you like that? It's not even like do you like it? Does this carry the message that you want to be communicating? And that's
right.
Powerful.
Right. Now, I picked on the graphic because because most of people listening, they think that logo is the whole. That's it right there.
Yes.
No, we can stop there. No, it goes deeper than that, as you were alluding to, and. Okay, so you have the answer to the value, the mission, the vision, all that sort of stuff, right? Now, that translates into maybe the copy that you're going to write for things like maybe brochures, things like that, right?
Yeah. It starts the conversation towards there, but before you get into content writing, you also need to know the personality behind your brand. So, what is that persona? We take clients through an archetype exercise to know their archetype, to just kind of stereotype what it is that they want to create in terms of a perception from the outside in. Mm-hmm. And then you also want to kind of tap into the voice of your brand. What kind of voice does it have? Is it inspirational? Is it informational? Is it really dynamic, passionate, happy? Kind of goofy, So once you have the voice, it really impacts the way you're going to write. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, I do have some other questions around what it is that you help people do, because from my understanding of branding, of course, it also gets into. Yes, we're trying to sell a product or make profit, all that sort of stuff, right? But there's, depending on all these aspects, depends on what a give back or a community service might be for that same company, the things that other organizations that they might want to get involved with, right?
Okay.
So do you work with people on how to figure that sort of thing out, or do you just let them kind of, from what you give them, they kind of figure the rest of that out?
You mean if they want to have a section to their business that's philanthropic specifically?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that typically depends on their mission and vision.
Right.
Yeah, it's not going to work if it's just a thing you want to do because you just think it's the right thing to do, or it would be nice that you did it. Mm-hmm. Because these sort of decisions come with responsibility and commitment. And if there isn't something really big that's pulling you towards being a philanthropic company, then you're not going to put the structures and processes and systems in place to make sure that that's being taken care of, and it's being taken care of in a consistent way.
Right.
So typically, organizations that do that well, it's directly associated to actually their values first, then its mission, what it is that they, their big why as to like why they even exist, and then their vision, because they want to be known for a certain thing in the future, and all of their efforts are going towards that vision.
Right.
And so if philanthropy aligns with all of these three things, then what we do is, yes, we help them create the brand for the philanthropy, but we don't actually help them execute, because that's not really our forte. So
Right. I didn't think the execution would be the be part of it, but give them an idea of where they should start looking, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then how does that actually evolve their business? How does it evolve their brand? Is it really on point? And is it, above everything else, is it authentic? That's really important, because your clients, your customers will know it immediately if you're not being authentic in that sort of, playing that game.
Yeah. So how does the authenticity, because positioning can be everything, right? Especially like you were talking about, the keeping the leaders in industries at the top of their game, so that they continue leading the industry. So how does all this play into getting so you have the right position in your industry?
Wow, gosh, I can say so many things to that question. So let's start with authenticity. So authenticity has become a bit of a buzzword, right?
Yes. It has.
Innovation, impact, like it's a bit of a buzzword. And sometimes it lessens the impact that it actually has. And what I want to say about that is that, so here's the difference between branding and marketing. Marketing is quantitative. It's got a quantitative quality. You can measure it, you can track it, there's numbers associated to it. So you really know, you put an X amount of dollars towards it and you're going to get X amount of ROI from it.
Mm-hmm.
Branding is qualitative. The value of it is the quality that it brings. And the most important thing that it'll do for you and your business, and probably your confidence, is that it creates trust and desire in people. That's what it creates. And then it's like peeling an onion. How do you create trust and desire in people towards what you're doing? It comes from authenticity. It comes from truth. So anytime you're not being or acting from a place of truth or on authenticity or integrity, things are not really aligned. And so people get this gut reaction of, I don't really think this company is all that legit. Or I don't know, there's something about this company I don't really want to work with. And it might have all the bells and whistles and it might be at a very fair value, but there's something in your gut. You'll say, I don't know, there's something missing. Right. And typically it's that something is not being communicated in an authentic way. And usually it doesn't lack of authenticity doesn't just mean, somebody's showing something in a wrong way. Most often it happens that a lot of associations don't know how to truly represent themselves. So there are these awesome people doing these amazing things with their organizations, or, if they're solopreneurs, they're up to some amazing things, yet their online presence is not aligned with who they are as people when they show up. So it creates this like disconnect when people see them online versus when they see them in person. And then so that authenticity is missing. And it just means that it hasn't been communicated to a level where people are going to get super jazzed.
Right. That makes sense. That if you're not acting out of the right places, you're just doing things just to go through the motions, it's going to become very obvious and apparent to those that you're trying to work with, right?
Yeah. If you're not present to the long-term game that you're playing, all the short-term stuff that you do just feels like, oh, there's still something I'm missing. And, you go on for 6 months and it's like, still there's something that's not quite there. And then the following year, it's the same conversation. And it just continues until you get very clear on what it is that you're up to doing. And then are you communicating it clearly so that people get it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So for you, what was the I'm going to call it the light bulb moment because most people associate light bulb and clearness together.
Yeah.
What was that moment that where you knew that this is the right mission, the right vision, and this is my values?
Oh my gosh, you got good questions. The light bulb moment. The light bulb moment comes from the clarity that I see people gain in this process that I take them through. Because typically at the beginning, it's they're confused, they're not quite clear on what they should be doing. There's a lot of should conversations. And that disempowers them in their business. It lowers sales, it lowers the types of conversations they want to have, it lowers the type of places they want to be out and networking and meeting and greeting people, or really presenting, out loud in their full expression. Mm-hmm. And once they gain that clarity, my goodness, the transformation that happens in both entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, and organizations when they have teams of people. And now they're clear on their brand. They're clear on their brand culture. So it's expansive and it's touching people And it's every day they have access to that clarity and they know what they're up to. And now they have the right language to talk about it because they know that now that they're going to talk about it, their clients and customers are going to get it. And so it doesn't feel like it's so much effort and it's heavy and all of that. Gosh, when I first started doing that and then I saw those kinds of results, I was like, this is it. Like if I get access to people being unleashed like that, wow, this is where I get to give back. And it's just totally my happy place.
That is something I have always noticed out of you, that you're always very happy, always excited to do the next project and everything. It's like I've always noticed that out of you, and now I know why.
How could you not be lit up by people being unleashed, right? It's just amazing.
Yeah.
And knowing that you got to cause that, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, gosh, I'm saying that and I'm touching wood because we do that as Persians. We like touch wood. I touch because I'm just so grateful that I got to find my path. And, you know, as a kid, I was very shy. I wouldn't talk to people. I was a complete introvert. And I still do believe that I am, even though I'm quite an extrovert now, too. I don't know. It's a little bit of both.
You're probably the introvert with the extroverted tendencies.
Yeah, something like that. Or I had to become an extrovert because I was now running a business. And so I needed to go out there and say hi to people. Right.
Yeah. Okay, now that we actually said that, there are people out there they think that, okay, I hung my shingle up and I have my business license and everybody should just come flooding to my door. And it doesn't quite work that way. You actually do have to go out and tell people that, hey, I'm in business. And you have to strive to actually get that right position so that everything works out. Well, part of that is, and I know you work with people on this, is finding that right target audience or market so that, hey, they become recognizable, right?
Yes.
So how does that work out for people?
Yeah. So to be clear on your positioning gives you access to where to hang out. You know, because when you know how you're positioning yourself, you're in your industry, you're clear about the kinds of people you want to be engaging with. So, you know, who are these people? Where do they hang out? Who do I even want to have in my life? You know, I mean, is it all about the money, or is it about the groups of people that I want to be hanging out with? You know, do I want to be around teachers? Do I want to be around people who are creating amazing things for the environment? Do I want to be around health professionals? So when you kind of pick your lane, then that allows you to say, okay, then where are these people hanging out? So it's not so much about looking around yourself and seeing what everybody else is doing, because that's like the squirrel syndrome, right? It's like, oh, a squirrel that way, and then another one over there.
Yeah.
Or like the shiny thing that are the latest thing that everybody's talking about, and I actually see this often in both businesses and entrepreneurs saying, okay, well, social media is so big. I got to be on social media. I got to do Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. I got to have a YouTube channel, and now it's like podcast, and it's like, oh my God, when are you ever going to have time to run your business if you got to do all that? And then it's like, it's a lot of energy that goes into that, into creating these things. And if you're not clear that your audience is there listening to you and gaining value from what you're posting, then really you're losing your energy and most likely money and time with that too. So getting really clear on your positioning and your target market is really key to knowing where your business is going to come from, because now it's like you're choosing to say, I want to work with these people, and so through that focus, you're gonna be very smart about your time.
Right. So if we're trying to chase after, it's like, oh no, my Twitter likes aren't where they're supposed to be, and oh well, what about my Instagram? That you're too busy running around after all that stuff. That to really talk to your true audience, right?
That's right. Yeah. I'll give you my example. So I work with either organizations or entrepreneurs. So yes, so I could say entrepreneurs are online, but really the kinds of entrepreneurs I work with are so busy that they don't have time for social media. So even if I were to be posting on there, they might see it like a month later. They'll be like, oh, Asada, I saw a thing you posted. I'm like, what? And they tell me what it was, and I posted that a month ago. And they happen to see it. And if I work with organizations, the people who are decision makers that I speak to get the deals, they're not spending time on social media at all. So the strategies that worked for me were, first, I started by networking, because actually building a community around me. And again, being an entrepreneur, sometimes it gets to be lonely when you're just all by yourself all the time. So it was important to build a community around me. So I really started growing my business through networking, through really meeting people, meeting other people through them. And and it was also fun. Like, I love showing up to events and chatting and all of that. And then newly, in the past, I'd say 4 to 5 years, what's really working well for me is public speaking. Right. Because you get to really talk about your subject. You're there as a subject expert. You're talking about your expertise. And when the right people are sitting in the audience, afterwards, it's a quick conversation of, hey, you know what? That your talk really resonated with me. Can we have a chat? And it's great. It's so great. Right.
And see that again. That makes sense, because the people that you need and want to work with, that's where they are.
Yes, exactly.
So, because on our end of things with the whole media thing and everything, people are like, well, why do you get so down about using social media? You use social media. It's like, I use social media to build to showcase great content, not to using social media to say, see, look, I'm eating a cheeseburger today.
Exactly. Yeah, there's that too.
Think about that.
and then, like, where are you going to post that? Because if you post that sort of thing on LinkedIn, oh my goodness, you're going to have some haters.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So, and I think that's where I've seen most of your posts was actually on LinkedIn. I don't even think we're connected at all on Facebook or Twitter. I think it's only on LinkedIn that we're actually connected, and it's because of why we're connected. So
yeah, that might just be true. And the reason for that is that LinkedIn is a professional space, right? So that's where I share what I'm up to and what I learned from these different experiences. And so I know that the business community is interested in that. And so that's where I share those things. Now, if we're friends on Facebook, you get to see more like personal pictures, family stuff, as well as articles and other things. And then my Instagram is really just for close friends and like relatives, because those are more like travels and I guess more personal things. It's interesting on social media to have some sort of a privacy. It's an interesting world we're living in. Yeah. And to make these choices, to say, oh, I want this platform to work this way for me and that one to work that way for me. And for some, all of them are for everyone. And that's great. I mean, there is no right or wrong. You got to just figure out what works for you.
Right. So it's leading to like a really interesting question, though, because we're talking about social media and people running off of the squirrel of going off. Everybody knows that the people are sharing things here. It's like, but what are the top 3 challenges that, or areas where you see businesses needing the most help, and that you can help them with it?
You mean social media specifically, or just in
No,
general?
just in general, just to make their business grow, because some businesses may not truly benefit from social media. There are some businesses out there that that they really should be looking at, like doing the networking and things like that, but social media isn't going to do it for them, right?
Right. Yeah.
So what are the top 3 challenges that or areas in which businesses you're working with really most times need to improve?
Okay. Yeah. Got it. So the first challenge is typically a place of, we don't know who we are as an organization. I don't have a brand. We don't really have a brand. We have a logo. We have a website. We don't understand this whole branding thing. And by the way, branding is a term that is used so much lately. I don't know if you've noticed it, but all sorts of people are talking about branding. You get photographers talking about branding, stylists talking about a brand, realtors talking about a brand. So it's a word that's being used in all sorts of industries. And so I get a lot of people saying, what the hell is branding? Let's just get to the source of what is a brand. So the first place is right there, right? That's the first challenge, is how do I know that I have a brand, and how do I know I have the right brand for me? So that's the first challenge. Once they get clear on their brand, then the next challenge is, how do I get all of my marketing collateral to represent my brand? Because when you create your brand, it's a strategy, right? It doesn't actually still have visuals to it. So you can't see it, touch it, smell it, all of that. It's a strategy on a piece of paper, and you're very excited about it because you're like, yeah, that's totally us. But now it's like, how do we communicate this to other people? Right. So that's the next challenge, is how do we do that? That's where all the graphics and colors and fonts and images come through. And then I would say the next challenge is, how is this going to impact our bottom line? Because branding is very much associated to the growth of a company. It's not, for listeners, please don't go through a branding process just to get something pretty. You could just hire a graphic designer and get something done that looks better than what it looked like before. But if you're willing to take on a whole branding process, it means you're wanting to impact your business in a profound way. And so you go through the whole process to understand how it's going to impact it, what's the ROI going to be, whether that means number of sales, number of followers, just how your brand awareness is now actually existing. And when people hear the name of your company, they associate it to certain attributes and values.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they are truly challenging things, but unless you're working with the right team and people to help you guide your business through all those things, right?
Yeah.
So I always like when we get to one point in the interview that I get to ask things, because I know you're very involved in the community, and that you have a vision that you want to see things that you want to see happen in our community. And I like to get to, when we get to this point, because then I can ask you a couple of questions about those sort of things. As you're working and growing Go Telego, what are some of the big visions that you want want your business to achieve in the community? What are some of the
Yeah. So thank you for this question, because that's actually very dear and near to my heart. So a few things, actually. with my company, we usually take on 1 or 2 projects a year pro bono. And this is usually with associations, non-for-profits, and where the mission is very much aligned with our mission, and just the kind of difference we want to create in the world. And so we get involved with them. We've been involved with David Suzuki, the Dalai Lama Center, a Focus Foundation, and then just lately, Healthy Heroes, where the foundation is there to feed hungry children in BC. You would be amazed to know how many children go to school with hungry bellies, and they come back home with still hungry bellies.
Yeah.
And so when I got to know the statistics, and I was just like, yes, we're in to help with this. So that's one thing that we've been doing actually quite consistently, I'd say probably for 7 years. The other thing though, and I don't know whether I will do this through my business or it's more of a personal thing that I want to do. One is directly in regards to kids and education. So this is a little bit outside of branding, but maybe not. I don't know. I'm still kind of working on it, percolating on it. And the core of it is that I find that the education system that we have does not represent the student body today. It was a system that was created in the 1920s. It had a purpose back then. And today we still are in the same system.
Yes.
And with a whole new, different generation mindset, environment, social complexities. And I really believe that it doesn't represent them, and it's not creating the best thing that they could get in those, years where they're like a sponge and they can create so much. And so I have this, let's call it a passion project that I've been working on in order to analyze this and, bring something to it. And I don't know what it would look like because it's still in the first initial research phase. So it's either, do we come up with a whole new system? Do we provide something to the current system? Is there a system that's going on right now that's working really well and that gets introduced to our public sector, or is it more of a private sector? So that is definitely a passion project that I'm working on. And then lastly, I would say, and this has been suggested by multiple clients, and that is when they go through the branding process that I take them through, they tell me, can you please create an online program or like a school where you're teaching other designers to have the same process? And I just think, wow. Like the first time a client said that to me, I thought they were kind of being nice and joking. And then I've heard multiple clients say that after. And it's because the process that I take them through has been through, I've come up with it through my experience. I went probably to the top-notch school that there is in the world for, studying communication design. And I did not learn the kind of stuff I learned on the job. And so I know that graphic designers are coming out from schools, and there's certain things that are missing that they don't know about businesses. And so, that's another thing that's sort of in my space working on to see, what would it look like if I actually created something that was for designers to just step up our game and be better listeners, be better communicators, and really come from a place of serving businesses versus thinking, we're just gonna, create some really cool things and maybe win awards and be really artsy and creative. You know, like what if we actually, as creative people, tapped into the bigger impact that we can have by working with businesses? That to me is really exciting to cause.
I agree with you on that one. See, this is supposed to be all about you, right? so we'll save some of those goodies for another time. Because we might have to bring you back for our second or third interview so we can share,
talk about these other projects.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, before I get to the last question, because I think the last question you're going to like suck up a bunch of time with it, and we won't get to I won't get to ask you is like, what are the best ways for people to find and work with you? So what are the best ways for people to work and find with you?
Oh, okay, yeah, that is a question. Okay,
yeah.
Great. Well, I mean, I imagine that when you're going to post this, you'll also tag me.
Of course.
And yeah, maybe post my website, phone number, email. I mean, I'm really accessible. All of that stuff is found online. You know, you can find me through my name, Azadeh, last name Yaragi. I'm not going to spell it out for you because it's complicated, but Michael's going to tag it. The website is gogotelugo.com. So gogotelugo.com. Email, it's azadeh@gogotelugo.com, and then I'm sure my phone number, you can find it online. So yeah, it's best way is just to reach out. Phone, text, email, reach out, let me know what your challenges are. If any of this resonated with you in terms of where you're at in your business, with whether you have a team or you're creating something on your own. Yeah, reach out and let me know what you're up to, and that will lead to a conversation.
Yeah,
and that's where everything starts.
It does. It all has to start with that initial conversation. Yeah. Okay, so what would the perfect world look like to Azadeh?
In regards to what?
Well, we might have to get back have you come back to talk about some of the education things because yeah. I agree with you that there's a lot of things that need to change in our education system that the kids are not getting what they truly deserve. I agree with you. I mean, maybe as you're working with, let's do it from the business end. As you're working with businesses, what would that perfect world look like for commerce and helping businesses grow?
Gosh, you've got good questions. You're very good at this. So first off, I don't actually believe in a perfect world. I believe in a world that works. And I guess what that looks like to me is it's in a world where people feel like they're at the source of their power. They don't feel like they're held back or not self-expressed or they're losing out on their potential. And something as simple as branding themselves could set them on the right journey towards those things. So, yeah, perhaps a better working world would be a place where people are in communication and they're open to change and they're open to looking at things from a different perspective, something that was possibly hidden from them. You know, it's in their blind spot. And so taking on something that's maybe challenging for them can get them to be showing up in a very different way in the world for themselves, for their families, their loved ones, their business, their colleagues. You know, it's like exponential once people are at the source of their power. Yeah, I would love to live in a world like that. Wow.
That does sound absolutely fantastic and wonderful. Azadeh, I loved having you on the show today, and do look forward to having you back again.
Thank you. I would love to.
And just thank you for your time today. It's been a real pleasure and really cool catching up with you again. So
Yeah, same here. Thank you so much for the invite. I hope your listeners got some value from this. And thank you for who you are, and the kind of content that you create, the kind of demand that you are for businesses to work, businesses to thrive. You're always up to some really cool things. So I really acknowledge you, and I really appreciate you. So thank you, Michael.
Oh, thank you. All right. To everyone else listening, have a great day, and check out Azaday and see how she can maybe help your business grow. Okay. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you for joining us today on Policy and Rights, and we will see you next time. This show has been produced by Depictions Media. Please contact us at depictions.media for more information.